Racist cops falsely accuse a black man of his wife's death, but the truth shocks everyone. A black husband falsely accused of stabbing his white wife faces racial bias from police, leading to her tragic death. Marcus and Emily, a devoted couple, shared a quiet life until a routine supermarket trip turned deadly. While Marcus shopped, Emily was robbed and stabbed in their car. Returning to find her bleeding, Marcus called for help, but the arriving officers saw his skin color and assumed guilt. His desperate pleas, fueled by grief and fear, were met with tasers and handcuffs. Delayed medical aid cost Emily her life. Marcus, shattered but resolute, sued the officers for racial discrimination, exposing a system that judged him before listening. Threats and a brutal attack tested his resolve, yet his strength carried him to victory. The officers faced justice, but the cost was immense. Marcus's fight reveals the deep wounds of prejudice and the courage to confront it, a legacy for others to carry forward. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen blinds, casting soft stripes across Marcus's calloused hands as he stirred sugar into his coffee. At 38, his broad shoulders carried the weight of a mechanic's life grease stains etched into his palms like a map of hard work. Emily, his wife of 10 years, hummed a tune by the stove, her auburn hair catching the light. Her laughter, bright and unguarded, filled their modest Atlanta home, a sanctuary from the world's sharp edges. They moved in sync, her flipping pancakes, him stealing a kiss, bound by a love that weathered whispers about their interracial marriage. Outside, their old sedan waited parked under a magnolia tree heavy with blooms. Marcus grabbed the grocery list, his deep voice promising Emily he'd be quick. She opted to stay in the car, scrolling through her phone, her pale fingers tapping to a song. The supermarket lot buzzed with Saturday chatter carts rattling and the scent of fresh bread wafting from the store. Marcus's life was simple work, Emily, and dreams of a family. But memories of past slights, like being followed in stores or hearing slurs gnawed at him. He wanted peace to shield Emily from that ugliness, yet felt a simmering duty to challenge it. When he returned arms full of bags, he saw Emily slumped in the seat, blood pooling at her stomach. Shock froze him, then rage and fear surged. He dialed 911, voice cracking, but as sirens wailed closer, he steeled himself. He'd demand answers for her. The supermarket parking lot, once alive with mundane chatter, turned eerie as Emily's blood seeped into the car's upholstery. Marcus knelt beside her, his grocery bags spilled across the asphalt, apples rolling under parked cars. Her breaths were shallow, her green eyes fluttering with pain. "Hold on, Em," he whispered, pressing his jacket against her wound. The metallic tang of blood thickened the air. His 911 call echoed in his ears, frantic pleading for an ambulance. Sirens wailed, slicing through the Saturday hum, but the crowd kept their distance, their murmurs a dull roar. A woman clutched her child's hand, eyes averted. A man filmed with his phone, indifferent to the human cost. Two police officers' badges glinting under the midday sun approached with heavy steps. Marcus, his hands slick with blood, stood to explain, a voice hoarse. "My wife, she's been stabbed. We need help." But their eyes, cold and narrowed, lingered on his dark skin, his broad frame. One officer, hand on his holster, barked, "Step back, hands up." The other circled, scanning Marcus like a predator. Confusion hit him like a wave, then realization. They saw a black man, not a grieving husband. "I didn't do this," he shouted, gesturing to Emily, her face paling by the second. The officers ignored her, their focus locked on Marcus. "Calm down, or we'll make you one," snapped, as if his anguish was a threat. Marcus's heart pounded, torn between fear for Emily and fury at their blindness. He pointed to the car, voice breaking. "She's dying, do your job," the crowd whispered, but no one intervened. One officer grabbed Marcus's arm, twisting it back. Pain shot through him, but it was Emily's faint groan that broke him. He yanked free, shouting, "Save her!" That's when the taser's prongs hit electric fire, coursing through his body. He crumpled asphalt, biting his cheek as the second officer cuffed him. Emily lay untouched, her blood pooling wider while the officers radioed for backup, not medics. The absurdity burned a husband begging for his wife's life, branded a criminal for his skin. Marcus, dazed, saw her hand twitch, then still. The paramedics arrived too late, their faces grim as they lifted her lifeless body. The officers' indifference, the crowd's silence. It was a betrayal of everything Marcus believed in. As they dragged him to the squad car, his resolve hardened. This wasn't just about Emily's death, it was about a world that saw him as guilty before innocent. What do you think of Marcus's fight-like comment, and subscribe for more stories of courage? Marcus sat in the police station's holding cell, the cold metal bench numbing his legs. The taser's sting lingered, a dull ache in his muscles, but it was nothing compared to the void in his chest. Emily was gone. Her laugh, her gentle touch, the way she'd tease him about oversalting the stew, all erased in a moment. His mind replayed the parking lot, her blood-soaked blouse, her lips mouthing his name. He pressed his palms to his eyes, trying to block the image, but it burned brighter. Grief choked him, a sob catching in his throat, yet he swallowed it. He couldn't break not here where the officer's sneers waited for weakness. The cell smelled of sweat and bleach, its gray walls scarred with graffiti. A single bulb flickered overhead, casting shadows that danced like his racing thoughts. He was alone, not just in the cell, but in the world now. Emily had been his anchor, the one who saw past the label's black mechanic trouble. Without her, he felt unmoored, adrift in a sea of suspicion. The officer's words echoed, "We know your type. Your type." The phrase cut deeper than the taser, a reminder of every time he'd been profiled, followed dismissed. He clenched his fists, nails biting his palms, fighting the urge to scream. Outside, he heard footsteps. The jangle of keys, but no one came. The isolation was deliberate, a tactic to break him. He thought of the crowd at the supermarket, their averted eyes, their silence. Not one had spoken up, not one had challenged the officer's assumptions. Even the paramedics rushing in too late had glanced at Marcus with pity, not outrage. The world had watched Emily die and let him take the blame. His chest tightened, anger mixing with despair. Was this what his life was worth? A presumption of guilt? A footnote in someone else's story? Marcus's fingers traced the wedding band on his left hand, its cool metal grounding him. Emily had slipped it on with a promise, "You and me always." He saw her now in fragments, her freckled nose wrinkling at a bad joke, her hand squeezing his during late-night talks about their future. She'd believed in fairness, in fighting for what was right. That belief stirred something in him, a spark beneath the grief. He couldn't let her death be just another statistic, another case closed. With a shrug. But doubt gnawed. What could one man do against a system stacked against him? The door clanged open and an officer tossed a paper cup of water at him, the liquid sloshing onto the floor. "Lawyer's coming," the man muttered, avoiding Marcus's gaze. Marcus straightened, wiping his face. The officer's discomfort was telling guilt, perhaps, or fear of being caught. Marcus's eyes, red-rimmed but steady, held the man's for a moment, a silent challenge. He wouldn't cower. Emily deserved more. He deserved more. As the officer left, Marcus leaned against the wall, the cold seeping into his back. He thought of his parents who'd marched in the 60s, their stories of batons and tear gas. They'd taught him resilience, but also caution. Keep your head down, son. He'd tried for years, swallowing slights to keep the peace, but peace had cost him Emily. His jaw tightened, resolve hardening like steel. He'd fight for her, for himself, for every person judged by their skin. The lawyer would be his first step, a lifeline in this storm. But the tension didn't ease. Each tick of the clock was a reminder of the battle ahead. The officer's actions weren't just a mistake. They were a symptom of something rotten, something that thrived on silence. Marcus's hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what he was about to do. He'd sue, expose their bias, demand justice. But would anyone listen? Or would he be another voice drowned out? The lawyer's office smelled of polished wood and old books, a stark contrast to the sterile cell Marcus had left days ago. Ms. Clara Thompson, a sharp-eyed woman with gray streaks in her braids, sat across from him, her pen tapping a steady rhythm on her desk. Her reputation as a civil rights attorney preceded her decades of battling systemic bias, a bulldog in the courtroom. Marcus, still raw from Emily's funeral, felt the weight of her gaze, not pitying, but assessing. He clutched a photo of Emily, her smile frozen in time, and set it on the desk. "They killed her," he said, a voice low but steady. "Not with a knife, but with their prejudice." Clara nodded, her fingers flipping through police reports. "We have a case," she said, "but it's a mountain. Racial profiling negligence. Wrongful arrest will hit them on all fronts." She outlined the plan: sue the two officers for discrimination and misconduct, demand accountability for Emily's delayed medical care, and push for systemic reform. Marcus listened, his grief channeling into focus. Clara's confidence was a lifeline, but he knew the risks. The officers' union was powerful, and public opinion could be brutal. Still, he nodded. For Emily, he said. Back home, Marcus's small living room felt cavernous without Emily's presence. Her knitting basket sat untouched, needles poking from a half-finished scarf. He sat on the couch replaying Clara's words. "We need evidence and allies." He reached out to a local activist group, the Atlanta Justice Coalition, known for rallying behind victims of police misconduct. At their meeting held in a community center, buzzing with murmured support, Marcus shared his story. His voice cracked as he described Emily's final moments, but the room's energy nods clasped hands. A woman wiping tears gave him strength. They promised to organize protests, amplify his case on social media, and connect him with a journalist. The coalition's leader, Jamal, a wiry man with a megaphone voice, clapped Marcus's shoulder. "You're not alone, brother." They strategized a petition to suspend the officers, a march to City Hall, and a viral hashtag Justice for Emily. Marcus felt a shift, a spark of power. His pain was becoming a weapon, his voice a tool. The journalist, a young woman named Lena, met him at a coffee shop, her recorder catching every tremor in his words. "This isn't just about me," Marcus told her. "It's about every black man judged before he speaks." Her article, published in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, lit a fire readers shared. Its comments poured in, and the coalition's petition gained thousands of signatures. But resistance wasn't without cost. Late one night, Marcus found a brick through his window, a note tied to it. "Drop the case, or you're next." His heart raced, but he called Clara, who urged him to stay vigilant and document everything. The coalition assigned volunteers to check on him, their presence a small shield. Marcus's resolve wavered. Fear gnawed at him, but Emily's memory steadied his course. He wouldn't let her death be silenced. The lawsuit gained traction, with Clara filing motions that exposed the officer's history of complaints, including prior racial bias allegations. Public pressure mounted, and the city council scheduled a hearing. Marcus stood at a coalition rally, his voice booming through a megaphone. Emily deserved better. "We all do." The crowd roared, their signs bobbing like waves. For the first time, Marcus felt he wasn't just fighting for himself, but for a future where no one else would lose what he had. Would Marcus and his allies break through the system's defenses, or would the officer's influence hold firm? What do you think will happen next? The courtroom was a sea of murmurs, the air thick with anticipation as Marcus sat beside Clara, his hands clasped tightly. The wooden pews creaked under the weight of supporters. Coalition members, journalists, and strangers moved by Emily's story. Outside, protesters chanted, their voices muffled but resolute, "Justice for Emily." The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, called for order, her gavel's sharp cracks silencing the room. Marcus's heart thudded, each beat a reminder of the months of anguish, threats, and that near, fatal night when masked men ambushed him outside his home, their fists and slurs leaving bruises but not breaking his will. Clara's case was meticulous, a tapestry of evidence woven from witness testimonies, the journalist's exposé, and the officer's own damning records. Body cam footage, reluctantly released after public outcry, showed their disregard for Emily's life, their focus on restraining Marcus rather than saving her. A paramedic testified, voice trembling, that he'd begged to treat Emily, but was waved off by the officers. The coalition's petition, now with over 50,000 signatures, sat on the judge's desk, a testament to the public's rage. Lena's articles had gone national, sparking debates on police reform and racial bias, with TV pundits dissecting the case nightly. The officers, Jenkins and Malone, sat stone-faced, their lawyers arguing self-defense and protocol. But Clara dismantled their claims, her voice steady as she presented prior complaints against them, 5 instances of excessive force, 3 involving black men. "This wasn't a mistake," she said, pointing to Marcus. "This was prejudice, costing an innocent woman her life." Marcus met the jury's eyes, his grief laid bare, but his dignity intact. He spoke of Emily's kindness, her belief in justice, and how the officer's actions stole her from him. The room stilled, a juror wiping her eyes. Then came the attack. Clara revealed photos of Marcus's injuries from the assault, linking it to threats traced to a burner phone used by a known associate of Jenkins. The courtroom gasped, the officer's composure cracking. The judge's face hardened. She'd heard enough. After days of deliberation, the verdict came guilty on charges of misconduct, negligence, and civil rights violations. Jenkins and Malone were stripped of their badges, fined heavily, and faced jail time. The courtroom erupted, coalition members hugging Marcus as he exhaled, tears streaking his face. Outside, the media swarmed, cameras flashing as Marcus spoke, his voice hoarse but firm. "This is for Emily, and for everyone who's been judged by their skin." The coalition cheered, their signs high, while Lena's camera captured the moment for her next story. The officer's conviction sent ripples. Jenkins lost a security contract. Malone's reputation crumbled, and their families faced public scorn. Marcus, though vindicated, felt no joy, only a hollow relief. Emily was still gone. The city responded. The mayor, under pressure, announced a task force on police reform with Clara invited to consult. Marcus's story became a rallying cry, fueling marches and policy debates. He stood at a vigil for Emily, candles flickering in the dusk, and felt her presence in the crowd's shared grief. Justice had come, but it was a heavy crown to wear. What does Marcus's victory mean to you? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories of resilience. Marcus stood in his backyard, the evening air heavy with the scent of cut grass. The lawsuit's victory, though monumental, felt like a half-drawn breath. The officers were punished. Jenkins and Malone faced prison, their careers in ruins. But Emily's absence was a wound that justice couldn't stitch. The house once filled with her humming, and the clink of her coffee mug was now a museum of memories, each corner whispering her name. Marcus's health had suffered. Sleepless nights and the stress of the trial left him with migraines and a persistent cough. The attack had scarred him too. Bruises faded, but the fear of another ambush lingered. His community hailed him as a hero, but the title sat uneasily. At the vigil, people clasped his hands, their gratitude warm but heavy. "You did it, Marcus," they said. Yet he saw the cost in their eyes. Wives, brothers, friends, lost to similar injustices. The coalition framed the win as a beacon, but Marcus knew better. Justice was a jagged path, never smooth, never complete. He'd exposed the system's flaws, but could one case dismantle centuries of bias? Doubt gnawed at him, a quiet companion to his grief. Clara warned him of the toll. "You've moved mountains," she said, "but mountains don't move without cracking the earth." His reputation, once just a mechanic's, was now a symbol admired by some, reviled by others. Hate mail arrived, accusing him of playing the race card, while supporters sent flowers, their notes piling on his kitchen counter. The victory had cost him anonymity, trading one burden for another. Still, Marcus carried on, driven by Emily's memory. He visited her grave, laying daisies, her favorite, against the cool stone. "We got them, Em," he whispered, but the words felt hollow. The system had bent, not broken. Justice was never easy, never perfect, and he bore its weight alone. The ripple effects of Marcus's victory spread through Atlanta like a slow, steady tide. The city council, spurred by the task force, passed a new policy mandating de-escalation training and stricter oversight of police conduct. Body cams were now non-negotiable, their footage reviewed monthly. The coalition launched a signature campaign for a statewide bill on racial profiling, gaining traction with 100,000 signatures. Lena's articles inspired a PBS documentary, Emily's Light, tracing the case's impact with Marcus's quiet strength at its heart. Social media buzzed with justice for Emily, fueling discussions on reform. Marcus, weary of the spotlight, chose a quieter path. He spoke at community forums, his words measured but powerful, urging accountability. The coalition honored him with a Courage Award, but he accepted it humbly, saying, "This is Emily's fight." His days settled into routine work at the garage, evenings tending his garden. The community embraced him, neighbors dropping by with casseroles, their smiles a silent thank you. One crisp morning, Marcus swept his front yard, the broom's rhythm steady against the concrete. He paused, looking at the magnolia tree where their sedan once parked. Its blooms, white and full, swayed gently. He placed a single daisy at its base, a nod to Emily. Walking to a coalition meeting, he joined hands with others, their steps unified on the path to change. The tree stood as a symbol, life persisting even through loss. Marcus's fight as a call to action. What will you do with this story? His courage turned grief into a beacon, exposing the cost of prejudice and the power of standing firm. Emily's death was a tragedy, but Marcus's refusal to stay silent carved a path for change. He showed that one voice, backed by truth and community, can shake a system. His legacy isn't just the officer's convictions or the reforms sparked. It's the spark he lit in others, to demand fairness, to question bias, to act. For the next generation, Marcus's story is a lesson: integrity matters, even when the world pushes back. Young people scrolling Justice for Emily or reading Lena's articles see a man who lost everything yet fought for what was right. His resilience teaches that justice isn't a gift. It's a struggle won through persistence and collective will. You reading this carry his torch. Speak up when you see wrong. Lift others' voices and don't let fear silence you. As Marcus sweeps his yard, the magnolias' blooms whisper Emily's love, urging us forward. His story lives in every step toward equality. In the words of Maya Angelou, you may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Marcus chose to rise. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let's keep this fight alive. Racist cops falsely accuse a black man of his wife's death, but the truth shocks everyone.